The opportunity cost, the hidden price of every decision. In our previous lessons, we introduced the concept of trade-offs and the fact that John, like everyone else, must make choices because resources are limited. But to make these choices effectively, John needs a specific tool to measure what he is actually gaining and what he is losing. In economics, we don't just look at the money spent. We look at the opportunity cost. This is perhaps the most critical concept for John to master if he wants to build an Ivy League-level economic mindset. As Gregory Mankiw defines it, the opportunity cost of an item is what you give up to get that item. Every time John makes a decision, whether it is to buy a cup of coffee or to invest in a new startup, he is simultaneously saying no to something else. That something else is the hidden price of his decision. Let's look at a practical example. Suppose John is considering going to a prestigious university. He looks at the obvious costs: tuition fees, the price of expensive textbooks, and the cost of his dormitory room. If he adds these up, he gets a large number. But an economist would tell John that this total is both too high and too low. Why? First, some of these costs are not truly costs of education. Even if John dropped out of school, he would still need a place to sleep and food to eat. The cost of room and board is only a true cost of education to the extent that it is more expensive at the university than it would be elsewhere. Second, and more importantly, this calculation misses the largest cost of all: John's time. When John spends a year listening to lectures and studying in the library, he cannot spend that same year working at a full-time job. For most students, the wages they give up while attending school are the single largest cost of their education. This is John's opportunity cost. Understanding opportunity cost changes how John perceives every hour of his day. Imagine John has an evening where he can either study for his finance exam or work a shift at a local cafe that pays $20 an hour. If John chooses to study, the financial cost of that study session isn't zero, it is exactly $20. He has spent $20 of potential income to acquire knowledge. If the knowledge gained is worth more to his future career than those $20, then John has made a rational decision. However, if John spends that same evening mindlessly scrolling through social media, he's still paying that $20 price tag, but he is getting zero return on his investment. This is why economists say that there is no such thing as a free activity. Even free events have an opportunity cost in terms of time. This logic applies to larger financial investments as well. When John decides to keep $10,000 in a standard savings account that pays almost no interest, he might think his money is safe and costing him nothing. But if he could have invested that money in a diversified stock portfolio returning 7% annually, his opportunity cost is $700 per year. By choosing this safe path, John is actually paying $700 a year for the peace of mind of not seeing his balance fluctuate. Is that peace of mind worth $700? For some, yes. For others, no. But the point is that John cannot make an informed choice until he identifies the hidden cost. The concept of opportunity cost also explains why famous athletes like LeBron James or tech geniuses like Bill Gates often drop out of college. For an average student, the opportunity cost of 4 years of school might be $100,000 in lost wages. But for someone with the talent to sign a multi-million-dollar professional contract or build a global software empire, the opportunity cost of staying in a classroom is tens of millions of dollars. For them, the cost of a degree is simply too high. John must learn to apply this same logic to his own life. He needs to constantly ask, what is the next best alternative I am sacrificing right now? In a corporate setting, which we will explore later with Briley and Myers, this concept evolves into the hurdle rate. When a company considers a new project, they don't just ask if the project will make money. They ask if it will make more money than any other project they could have funded with that same capital. If Project A earns a 5% return and Project B earns a 10% return, choosing Project A effectively costs the company a 5% gain. This is why opportunity cost is the gold standard of decision-making. It forces John to look beyond the visible and consider the invisible. John must also realize that opportunity costs are subjective and change based on the situation. On a busy workday, The opportunity cost of an hour of John's time is very high. It could be the value of a completed contract or a solved problem. On a Sunday afternoon, the opportunity cost of that same hour might only be the value of a nap. Therefore, the price of John's decisions is constantly fluctuating. A rational John doesn't try to maximize every single cent. He tries to ensure that the benefit he receives from any action is always greater than the value of the alternative he gave up. To master the economic mindset, John must stop thinking in terms of how much does this cost in dollars, and start thinking in terms of what am I giving up. This shift in perspective is what separates a passive consumer from a strategic thinker. Whether it is a government choosing between healthcare and infrastructure, or John choosing between a movie and a book, the principle remains the same. Every choice is a trade-off, and every trade-off has a hidden price. By calculating these hidden prices, John can finally begin to allocate his most precious and scarce resource, his life, with the precision of an Ivy League economist.